You're listening to Precinct 444, a podcast network from the National Law Enforcement Museum. Today we're bringing you an episode from Icons, where listeners are introduced to incredible people working within the law enforcement community who have made a profound impact in our world. These one-on-one interviews provide insight into their lives and careers so we can better understand their challenges and recognize their bravery, commitment, and sacrifice. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Icons with host Bill Alexander, the Memorial's Executive Director. Bill hosts two guests in the Precinct 444 studio during National Police Week 2023, Pat Montuore and Erik Heller. They discuss their police careers and the creation of the Police Unity Tour, a well-known and highly supportive organization of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. And now for Pat Montuore and Erik Heller, A Matter of Honor.
So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bill Alexander. I'm the Executive Director of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial here in Washington, D.C., and I'm incredibly honored to be joined today by two men, one of whom has really been a strong influence in my own life, and unfortunately, I'm trying to fill his rather large shoes. Pat Montuore, retired police chief of Florham Park, New Jersey Police Department, and the predecessor who held the very job I now hold, which is why I referenced those large shoes. And with him is also retired Chief Erik Heller. Chief, I don't know what agency you originated from.
It was Harding Township, New Jersey.
Harding.
Right near Florham Park, where Pat was.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so honored to have both of you here. Slightly intimidated. Two prior chiefs of police in the same room. I retired as a major for those listening, so that means they far outrank me. Normally, they probably wouldn't even talk to a gentleman of my lowly stature, but here they are. They're willing to talk to me today, and I'm thrilled to be here with both of them. So I wanted to start today and just sort of talk about law enforcement, if you guys are otherwise so inclined. Pat, you've been here many years, and just about a year ago you received an award here, and Harry, who is the executive director of the Police Unity Tour, mentioned in his speech, and then you followed up and even mentioned it, that you as a kid ran into Harry, who at the time was a police officer, and you might have been involved in some shenanigans, and I thought we would start there. What are your earliest recollections of law enforcement, and how did that, if at all, spark your interest in pursuing a career?
That's an amazing question, and you know what? You're going to dig into the truth of my past life. So I grew up in Orange, New Jersey, and West Orange on the border. My entire youth, and I had the opportunity of being a busy kid. I'll say it that way rather than saying a mischiefy kid. But I was a busy kid in the neighborhood, always looking to play sports and do certain things. And sometimes you got yourself in a situation to where you needed to be told what not to do and what to do. And during that time frame, there was a lot of law enforcement within my community in the Valley in West Orange and Orange. And one of those individuals was named Harry Phillips. And Harry Phillips was an officer, a young officer, as he left the service in Vietnam, came to West Orange. And during that period of time, he had many opportunities between the late 70s and early 80s to let me know that he was a police officer and that I should go the right direction. And in that, it's a close community. My uncle was a police officer as well, who was a very big influence, and also my godfather, a big influence in my life. And so was Harry Phillips, to be honest. When you think about what you did as a young person and where you are today, I've been very lucky to have people like that in my life that made me a better person. And not so much that you want to say that you weren't a good person yourself, but you had people that cared enough about you to give you the direction necessary or to show you something that could, do something that can make you feel rewarded or doing something for somebody else. And I watched that, both my uncle and Harry Phillips and many people who corrected me along the way, that taking shortcuts, Bill, when you're a young kid, you look for the easiest way, sometimes, and, your mother and your father correct you. But as you get a little bit older, you hope that others will tell you that's not the right thing to do. And I had that in my life, and I was very lucky to have that and be supported by people and to direct me in the right way.
Did you know from an early age that you wanted to pursue a career in law enforcement, or is it something that happened as gradually as you aged?
Again, another crazy story. The answer is yes. I always wanted to be in law enforcement. My dad was not. My dad owned a small garage. He was an auto body mechanic, and when you're in that environment where I was, it was like you need to follow your father's footsteps. You have to be able to take the business on. You want to take care of your family in that facet. But I always looked at the most amazing thing and how my uncle and others as law enforcement interacted with the community. And it wasn't so much about the glory of it. It was about being able to take care of someone's problems, and being able to be there for them and be a person that had honor. And that's what I was looking for. So the answer is that I always wanted to be in law enforcement. I just didn't know, if it was going to possibly be. And again, like I said early on, there was many people who made me be able to actually reach that. I was early on in my life, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, and you say that having certain types of, concerns or issues in that area, could that stop me from doing what I want to do or be? And in that process, it didn't. I mean, was it a little hard? Yeah, like anything else. But tenacity, care, and respect for what you want to do in life, and the push is what you need to do. So if this is reaching anybody out there, when someone tells you that, you have an indifference, that's only an indifference. It doesn't mean that you can't. You can. And I'm a living proof of that you can do anything in life. And no matter where you come from, educationally or whatever, that if you put your heart and mind to it and you trust the people around you, and hopefully they're good people around you, that you could be directed in the proper profession and be a great person in the community.
Well, thank you for that. And Chief Heller, it's in sort of a molecular, down to my bones, I've been trained to refer to you as Chief, and I call both of you Chief, even when we're just out in the hallway. So, but for the purposes of this podcast, I'm going to force myself to call you Erik, because I know you would prefer that. What is your superhero origin story? And I really do view modern-day law enforcement officers as superheroes. Where did you start? Where do you remember thinking about law enforcement?
So mine's somewhat completely opposite. I never wanted to be a cop in the beginning. My family has no law enforcement in our blood at all. I was going to college as an accounting major. I was going to be a CPA sitting behind a desk. And then I took my first accounting class. It was not what I thought, not how, it wasn't not a good class to take. Nothing against all those accounting majors out there, but, and I always kind of started having it in the back of my mind, maybe a few years out in high school and getting out from there and going to a $60,000 private school for college. I told my mother, hey, I think I want to be a cop. And she says, you don't have to go to college for that. Well, yeah, but I'm here already. So I finished, and she was not very happy, not very excited about it. But after a couple years and getting out of college, had a job with Montclair State University as security right out of college. And then I got promoted to police there at the campus. I transferred out of there to a small agency in Morris County by me now in Harding. And they were completely supportive. I mean, mom and dad, no issues anymore. The typical proud son I am now, and they like the PBA gold card. So,
yeah.
God bless.
That sparks in me the idea that I suspect that right now, the young men and women who might otherwise entertain joining what I still view as our profession, I suspect there's very, very strong pressure from families, friends, peers to not join this profession. I wonder, what was your mom reticent for you to join at the time? Was it a danger factor, or she felt like you could pursue a more financially lucrative career by virtue of having gone to college and doing something else?
So the answer is yes, both. No question. It was the safety. What could happen? This is my baby. I was the youngest, right? So, but then the other part of it was exactly what she said is at the time, we didn't have to go to college. You didn't need any further degrees. And I could have saved $60,000 a year for 4 years and still done what I did.
Just think if you would put that in a Roth IRA.
Exactly.
Amen to that.
So it was, I took a little bit to convince them, but again, once I convinced them, they were completely on board, completely supportive, and, we went from there.
Well, all things being equal, I think law enforcement is grappling with this idea of we so desperately need people to join our profession, also countered with the idea that extended education is likely a good thing on balance for new police officers. It gives them more time to mature. It gives them more time to sort of experience the world, probably obtain some level of ideas or knowledge that they weren't otherwise exposed to just in a high school thing. Like I think the three of us could probably steel man an argument that going to college on balance makes you a better police officer, at least out of the gate.
There's no doubt. No doubt.
And it's a socialization process, too. It's socialization. It's diversity. You know, you grow up in Orange, New Jersey. You only know Orange, New Jersey. And I grew up in West Orange. I actually graduated with Pat's brother from high school. And if we only know West Orange and Orange, it's not that, you know, you get out there, you meet people from around the world, and so much better socialization, education, and just how to deal with people.
Yeah. One of the things I think about when I think about cops in New Jersey is I have to assume, particularly at a young age, that the gravitational pull of the NYPD is probably almost all-consuming. Did you all purposely choose New Jersey as your choice for law enforcement? Did you feel a pull towards New York or a big police department?
You know, I will tell you this. When you want to be a police officer, Bill, you know, you go anywhere. I was taking tests that were 2 hours away from my house, realistically not knowing, or I would never be able to travel in that situation as an 18 or a 19-year-old young man trying to take tests. So the answer is yes. You want to go to those large agencies in those areas where you want to, you see on TV, you see the charge of what people are doing. But then realistically, you take a look at it as you start to say, what is going to be the best fit for myself? And you take a look at your community and you try to go within the communities or certain communities around you. And if you choose later on to go to, let's say, Newark, New Jersey, NYPD, Jersey City, the larger departments and agencies that have, hundreds of officers, and the agencies that we were in, we have smaller communities. They're closer knit. have between, 30 and 60 officers in most of the agencies in some of the small towns in New Jersey. But I will tell you, it was the most amazing ride in my life, and I would do it absolutely again. From the trouble of trying very hard to get in, taking tests and interviewing, and Bill, as being an administration, being that person checking on the people coming in, as well as you being one of those candidates early on, saying it's not so easy. And I would love the public to understand that it is a very, very rigorous background and very, very, detailed interview process for an officer, a man or a woman, to become a part of law enforcement prior to going to academies that are 24 weeks long, that they and themselves weed out the people that aren't supposed to be there. And, it's not a perfect career, Bill. We all know that. That's why we're all sitting in this room. But the point about it is, I think our public needs to realize we're human beings.
Yeah.
Not everybody that, we serve with is going to do the right thing. But it doesn't mean that it's bad. It means that we ourselves have to make sure that those individuals that do that, we identify them and remove them immediately. But we honor those who continue the consideration of our community and putting the individuals we serve first, other than yourself, and willing to actually die in a line of duty to be able to save the citizens in your community is a very big, big responsibility. To carry a firearm, to say that you could be able to take the life of another in the purpose or the process to save another. I mean, that's a responsibility that is hard and very heavy on you as a human being. You have to be able to be responsible for those things. And I don't want to sit and diatribe on those aspects, and I know that there's many other questions, but, for the public to realize that there are many responsibilities on these officers. So college, absolutely. More than college, continue to go to school until you can't. Be a part of society, understand what's going on in your environment, your government, and the community. We just want the community to realize that, just because we make mistakes doesn't make us somebody that we're against anyone. It's not us against them. I want them to know that we are totally for you. We're 100% for you, and to make sure that you're safe. And, that's the message that we would hope that law enforcement, whether it be federal, county, or state, is giving. So...
Yeah, you talk about the hiring process and screening folks and trying to attain what we in the profession would hope would be 100% of your employees being not perfect, but as good as you can get them. And I remember in the academy, I would tell young recruits, look, this screening process is not perfect. And so for those listening, it is not perfect. But I tell you what, If you were to say to me, Bill, you need to pick 100 people from any profession in this country that you want to be your neighbors, your peers, living in your community, compared to any other segment, and I don't denigrate any other segment, but, priests, grocery store clerks, bus drivers, accountants, you give me 100 of those versus 100 cops, and I guarantee you that the number of crimes committed by, or the frauds, or any of the sort of lapses or major mistakes that cause trauma or harm in some neighborhood, I guarantee you it's lower in those 100 cops, randomly selected from across the nation. Amen. So the screening process is not perfect. It cannot be perfect. If there was such a process, we would have implemented it already. So you can't be perfect, but I do think the screening process, by and large, works for most accounts. Chief, Erik, and I'll come to you in just a minute, Pat. I remember still so starkly the very first day for me in my police academy. And if I'm being honest, I was wide-eyed. I could not wait to start the job. I wanted to drive fast and intervene in crimes in progress, but I had no long-term vision. Sitting in front of me right now is 2 retired chiefs of police. So Erik, starting with you, I wonder, your first day of the academy, did you have leadership goals? Did you at the time think, I'm going to continue to advance up the ranks and take charge of this department? Or did that progress over time?
I had the ideas, I think, back then, and I do think some of that is from my college classes, but it definitely progressed more over time. And especially going to 3 different agencies, from the campus police to a very small 6-man department to the department that I ended at, I started seeing, wow, I can maybe make a difference. I could say, okay, there's some things I see here, and how can we make this better? And as a patrol officer, you may not always be able to implement those things. You could give all the ideas you want, but and especially in the old times when we first started, it was, the chiefs were kind of like my way or the highway, and that was it. And you couldn't give, things to do or suggestions and things like that. So as I got more seasoned, I kind of learned how to present those things, maybe present that with the solution, say, hey, and that I'm willing to help with that solution, and how can I do it? So that progression and maturity that I got over the years is what got me to that, hey, I can make all those decisions with the help of my other people, with the help of the patrol officers and the sergeants, lieutenants. And that's when I did become chief, that was one of my biggest goals, was to be inclusive of everybody's ideas. And so I think I made the change within my department once I did get there, that I want everybody's input. I don't want it like it used to be that, hey, you're a patrol officer, don't worry about it, this is how we do it. Now, and I think I left it that way when I retired, is how do you guys feel? Like, you guys are you guys and girls are the ones out there doing this job. You guys are the ones wearing that uniform and driving that type of car, and even the equipment we wear on our belts. Did what type of weapons are we going to buy next, when we have to buy weapons? They were the committee of that to figure out what the best, and they would bring me the options, and then I would make that decision. So definitely maturity and progression through the career is what really got me to that, hey, I can actually do this, and I can actually make a difference. And that's what it is. It's making a difference in both the community, but also within the agency, and leaving it better than how you left it.
Yeah. Pat, your first day in the academy, you think, I'm going to be chief, or it's not even on your radar?
It wasn't on my radar in the very beginning. I will be very honest that I was so lucky to be able, Bill, to actually be in a police academy. That's how lucky I felt. I didn't go to college at the time. I was, almost 19 when I became an officer. So again, right out of high school, you're a year later, and you're saying to yourself, I'm so lucky to be in this career. So it was the awe factor in the beginning. It was the honor to be a police officer. It was right away to be involved in the interdiction aspect with me. I wanted to be involved in to do something that would take not just crime, but issues that were concerning and would hurt people off the street, whether it be drugs, guns, or anything else. So your immediate, I thought in the academy for me was, I want to be involved in one of those different types of groups, like the detectives, or you want to be street crimes, you want to do something. And then what I realized is that after a couple years on the job, Bill, I felt as though, I want to be a voice. How do I get there? I started taking every class, every school, going to college, just trying to do everything yourself to make sure that you were not only a marketable person, as you would say in our field, but somebody respected. And, when you say you came up the hard way, in a sense, you want to be able to say that you came up a way that you were able to be taught, educated, and understanding of your career. And that's the way I feel as though I was able to start making it up to the next rank. We always say sergeant was the hardest one to get to, Chief. What do you think, Eric? That the hardest one to get to?
Yeah, because that's getting your foot in the door.
Yeah.
It's getting your foot into that supervisory position.
I also think sergeant is the toughest rank out of all possible ranks in the police
Right?
department.
Yeah.
To be a street sergeant in charge of road troops is tremendously difficult.
Yep.
So are you hearing it out there, all sergeants? We're saying that you, the frontline sergeants, are and have been always the main purpose of making our officers do and be able to be the persons that they need to be for our citizens. So I'm saying it again, sergeants, you are the front line. And I will tell you, it's the toughest job to try to be in between management and then your patrol team and to be able to put that information out there. But I found it challenging, Bill, in the way to where I wanted to keep moving. And I wanted to be able to tell people that. And, and being nervous and making sure that you were educationally prepared was a challenge for me. I wanted to make sure that I went back to school. I wanted to make sure that, you were capable and able to do those things. And I was able to do that. I was very lucky. But I failed to say there were many people that were in my life that helped me, guided me, taught me, pulled me by my shirt, maybe sometimes disciplined me to make sure that I was capable, able, and ready to move forward. And I'll tell you, Pat Montuore may have been a chief, but it was because of the people I served with that I was a chief. They gave me the tools, they gave me the support, they gave me the ability to want to move forward. And the day I retired, I'll say it today and I'll say it tomorrow 100 times. I'll come back and do this job for free because it's something that I just can't shake. Bill, I'm retired for 7 years and I'm still involved, being with the tour and at the memorial. But I can't see my life not being an advocate for those who give themselves to others, and especially to be an advocate for the memorial where we're sitting right now on the most beautiful week of the year. And that's where we get to honor our fallen and see amazing groups come in and remember those sacrifices. The most important person I feel moving forward is the one that's not a police officer, Bill. And that's the young men and women that are trying or deciding or thinking about why they're either going to school. Should I be in that career? And sometimes I feel that kids are saying no to that. And I think it's up to us, all of us, retirees, current people that are involved, large organizations, to not shy our young people away from it and not so much go after and recruit and be like, force this upon them, because it has to be something that is ingrained in your soul, I think. I think we need to be able to reach them like we're doing now on social media. We have to adapt and overcome from where we tried to recruit early on. Policing used to be the brawn. Now it's the brain. And, we have to move towards that ability to be able to focus on what is best in our communities. And it's not so much how many people you lock up. It's how much people you don't have to lock up. And how can we get there? And, I always wish that on my job. I drive through my town today and I only feel pride. And it makes me feel like I said it when I was with my wife, Alita. We were driving through our community with the Police Unity Tour. And I said in the vehicle that I was sharing with her to ride as support, and I said, I did my best. And I hope that everybody there realizes that there's somebody better than me, but I did my best. And I want to make sure that I think about the people that are out there today. And no matter whether I'm my department or not, I just want to say it may sound cliche. I love you. I don't know anybody else to love. I love my community. I love people. I love the ability to be able to sacrifice and give myself to others in order for them to be safe. Whether that seems strange or not, that's the way God made me.
You were talking about leadership, taking on greater roles. One of my thoughts is that, and this to me is universal, every police officer I've ever talked to, what is the best time in your career? What do you recollect as the most fun, where you were the most engaged, that if you could go back and do the work right now And to a man and woman, they say, when I was in patrol, responding to 911 calls, the ability to have such a strong impact on one person's life, to intervene in a crime in progress, to stop chaos. So there's a very real, fun is not the right word, but there's something that connects to your soul when you're out there doing the work, right? And so then you talk about leadership, and particularly people who aren't in the profession, but even those who are in the profession, there's a cost to moving up the ranks, to taking those greater leadership roles. And certainly as you move beyond sergeant, as each step you move up the ranks, you're one step further removed from sort of the action, really where your heart is. But each of you and many leaders like you have recognized, I have developed a skill set, a professional experience that I can use to have a much broader impact than just one police officer. I can use my skills and the resources that I have at my disposal to have an impact on my community. And it occurs to me, I was thinking about this before we met today. There has been a lot of discussion over the last decade about mental health in law enforcement.
Yes.
One of the aspects that I don't ever recall hearing is mental health for senior leaders of law enforcement agencies, for public safety agencies. If you're the chief of police for any agency, I don't care what size it is, if it's 5 sworn officers or 50 or 5,000, that is an awesome responsibility. You are directly responsible for some number of sworn members who are out there at your behest, putting their lives on the line. And you're also, by extension, responsible for the lives of the men and women, the citizens in your community, which you are swearing to protect. And it's not a job that you show up at 9 on Monday and leave at 5 on Friday. That is a 24/7, every second of the day, really crazy, stressful, strong demands on you and your life and your mental health and your family. So my question to each of you is, how, during your time as chief, did you handle that? What did you do?
So my big thing was networking. You have a great system within your chiefs organizations, your associations, your state associations. And beyond that, they're all chiefs. You can talk to them. And I'm sure that there's been a chief that has probably come across the same situation that you're in right now. And you could talk to them, whether it's just support, whether it's, hey, let me run this by you and see what you think. This is what I want to do. What do you think? Or I have no clue, but I need help. What do you think? But then there's also the networking that we were able to start doing once I started with the Police Unity Tour. You got people all over, not just the country, but the world. I can call Vegas, I can call New Mexico, I can call Florida and Georgia and say, hey, I need to talk to somebody about this. And what do you think? What's going on? And just the friendships that we've made even, and not just police situations, but like you said, the stress, the mental health aspect of it is I got friends who I could talk to. So getting that group, that network from across the world was just huge for me. And that's what helped. And also just within your department, I always say you're only as good as your number one beneath you. So my lieutenant was key. He was what we call the truth teller. I would always go to him and he'd say whether I'm thinking crazy or not. And he would say, yeah, Chief, I'm not sure about that one. And then we'd talk about it. So having that support system on the outside, but also having that support inside, and then family, having the support from the parents who finally supported me, and the wife and the kids. And, it's just having everybody around you in every aspect of your life that can help with that.
Pat, what did you do?
Well, I'll give you a breakdown from the immediate. I was scared. One minute you're fighting so hard to get that rank and with the star on your shoulder, and you say to yourself, oh my God, here it is. I'm walking down my stairs the first day. I say to myself, am I qualified? Can I do this job? Am I going to be the chief that my people need? And, going to different schools and leadership, obviously college and those things help you, but knowing people help you more. So what I wanted to do is I didn't want to do what Pat Montuore wanted to do. There was a lot I wanted to do. I wanted to jump out and make the world, a better place. I wanted to be able to save everybody's life. I wanted to do all the things you could. But what I needed to hear from is my staff. So I created a basic one-on-one. I met with every single employee. I don't care if you were sworn. I don't care how long you were on. I don't care your rank. I wanted to hear good news, bad news, and how you were going to fix it. I wanted to find out if I was good, bad, or indifferent. Did they like what I did in previous positions and no discipline? If they said that you were the worst ever, I needed to pick myself up and figure out, is that true? If they said you were the greatest, I didn't get a big head. I figured out, put it in a journal, how I can continue to harness that. So I took that opportunity to take a look at the values. And people, your men and women in the law enforcement, they want to be trained. They want to matter. They want to be able to feel that their community believes in them. So what I tried to do was do the same thing back to the community. Sent out something to the community. Hey, what do you think about us? We made those changes. We made training, emergency medical. I was able to do and listen, and I shouldn't say we were able to do as an organization, identify what our organization and our community needed through a patrolman from brand new to a captain or deputy chief that's been there for years. And with that, framework, I was able to figure out for myself, I can do this. I can really actually be a pretty good chief if I follow these guides and I do these things. And one thing I always continue to do, and I'll be very honest with you, I always made sure that if I made a mistake, I owned up to it. I didn't just roll over and say, hey, I'm the boss, lump it, like it, or walk away. Did I make mistakes? Absolutely, every day. I learned from them. To this very day, I say to my family, my wife, my kids, I learned specifically from my mistakes. I did not come into this world and in law enforcement and say I knew everything. I always listen to the people, and you listen to the community, and you hope that you have eyes and ears, Erik, like we do in smaller towns, where you hear from the community. You see them in your local churches, your local community functions, and whatever. I made certain that I became a part of my community. I got on the Board of Education. I wanted to find out what our schools were doing. I wanted to make sure that our education in our school was secure with all the things that we see around us. After September 11th, Bill, I became a little jaded in certain areas. I wanted to make sure that we took responsibility and didn't leave that responsibility onto the world, the government, or the politicians to make sure my community was safe. I'm going to tell you right from my heart, we made sure my community was safe. If I saw things going on out there, we made sure we were ready. We sent people out to be educated on things that may not be in our community, but could be. I wanted to make sure that we were ready for it. And I had stars. And I'll tell you that right now. Every department has a few people that you may not want to go out to dinner with. I'll be straight up with you, but everybody is talented. All you got to do is give them an opportunity to be in the niche that they need to be in. And that's what I tried to find out. Some guys said, I want to be a detective bureau. I said, that's not your place. You should be in community policing. Look who you are. The kids want to run up to you and tell you what. Put them in juvenile. Put a round hole, round peg. Everybody wants to go out and look like they're NYPD and be in the SVU unit, be in street crimes like we said earlier. But that's not what it is. Glory is not good. Glory is for somebody who wants to look good. But honor is what continues to make us be the best we can be with respect and commitment. The other thing is remembrance, not only for our dead, but also for our living. How do we make their minds, like you said earlier, be right? And early on, we brought chaplains into our agency. We also asked them crisis intervention teams, as we saw in the state of New Jersey. It was a big push for people to come out during major incidents that our officers were on. So our minds, may not be, your brain may not be a muscle of some sort, but in any sense, I will tell you, we exercise. You go out there and you use your body as a tool. Well, where's your head in that tool? And your heart. Aren't they the most important? So to me, if you don't have your heart and your head together, and you don't have the people that surround you in that mindset and that believability, then policing will be very difficult for you as a police chief or any rank that you are. So I was very lucky to be able to listen, and as impatient as I am, I listened even more, and I made sure that I heard them. And then sometimes I didn't, and sometimes I needed to be, as a chief, to redirect it. And that's okay, as long as you can say that. Again, I'll say it again for those chiefs that are out there, nobody's bigger than the program. Listen to your people. I may have had a small department. I may not be in an agency where there's thousands, but people are people. It doesn't matter where you are. Crime is there. Quality of life issues are there. Every single thing under the sun that any human being that are in a room together can happen. So nobody can point a finger from one agency to another, federal, county, state, large, or whatever. We all share the same issues that go on.
You started and you were talking about your first day on the job, you've got that star and you have some internal doubts, the imposter syndrome. Am I the right person for this job?
Yes.
Can I do it? And, I think that's really important for our audience to hear and think about. It's certainly nothing that you would have said out loud, or even now you would say out loud if you were still a chief, to your subordinates. You want to inspire in them some level of confidence that when you've made a decision that they will believe it's the right decision. But I think all three of us have been in leadership classes or behind closed doors or talking with essentially some level of our peers. And I think that's very common, if not universal. I think each step up the ladder you make in terms of rank, I think it's very, very common to say, am I capable of this job? And I remember one of my chiefs said to me, I had probably just made major. I was in charge of I wasn't a chief, but I was in charge of a station, 200 sworn members assigned to me, a pretty big geographic area. And he said, Bill, if you aren't uncomfortable in your career, if you aren't feeling like you still have things to learn and you're just slightly out of your depth, then you've stagnated. You're not doing yourself or the community any good. By virtue of you feeling uncomfortable, that means, one, you're in the right place, but two, that's going to drive you to do the work that this community needs to get done. And I suspect both of you stepped up to that challenge in a really big way. So, final question on chief and law enforcement related stuff. I remember as such a young police officer, and I suspect it's still true to varying degrees today, that there seemed to be, and certainly in my young mind, I'm 22 years old and running around on the streets, and I'm convinced that I have all of the answers. Bill Alexander can save the world if only the chief will do this, if only the chief will spend money on this, if only the chief will reassign these guys who are in community services and send them to the street to answer 911 calls. When your singular job is just a patrol officer, the world can seem much easier, or at least the problems that you're facing can seem much easier. And each step up the rank, you've essentially assumed a new job. And it took me a long time to realize that. Certainly when I was in a leadership position, I was realizing it. But when you're a police officer, when you're a PFC, when you're a corporal, being able to see through that veil, to see that the jobs of your leaders have changed, and that it does create this divide, this disconnect. You as chief of police have implemented this policy, hey, we're going to do X, Y, Z, and the rank and file, it's very hard for them to understand. Why are we changing? Why is he asking us to do this? Why isn't the chief defending us? Or the chief isn't defending us enough, or why isn't the mayor giving us more money? There is a disconnect there, and so I'm curious for other leaders out there. We'll start with you, Erik. What was your tactic or technique to bridge the divide between the rank and file, all of whom are working for you, and really your masters in terms of who you are serving, the citizens and likely some elected leader? That's a very, very hard bridge to gap the bridge. How did you do it?
It's an easy term to say, but it's a hard thing to do, is the buy-in and getting your officers and the community and everybody involved to actually buy in. And it comes down to exactly what you said. What's the why? And I didn't have any problem, and I don't think anybody out there should have any problem explaining a little bit. We had department meetings once a month. Again, we were a smaller agency, so we were able to do a full departmental meeting once a month. Why didn't we have our 2 brand new cars that we were supposed to have? Well, there's a reason behind it. And most people think if you're on the street, and I did too, as a patrol officer, it's the chief, it's the administration, it's the township committee, it's whoever, they're messing with us, or it's our contract's not signed yet and they want to mess with us. Well, I want people to believe nobody's out to get them. The chiefs aren't there just to make the patrol officers' lives miserable. I always try to get it better, obviously. So I explained why. Why? Because the Ford canceled our order. The budget wasn't passed in March when it was supposed to be, so it had to go to April. I mean, there's always a reason why we didn't get what we needed. And the same thing with training, the same thing with the tactical vest that they wanted to wear, or things like that. So there's always a why, and there's no harm in explaining why. Now, of course, as leaders and as chiefs and even as road sergeants, there are times when you can't explain why. And it's, boom, you have to make sure, do it because I'm telling you to do it now because this is emergent situation or something like that. But if you have the time, why not? Why not say, this is why? And then oh, okay, that makes sense. And then maybe here's the plan of going forward. Here's the plan for this new car. And I'm using that as an example. Is the plan is we're going to do this, this, and this. And we're going to get this type of car instead. And then so that we can get it sooner. Oh, okay. That actually makes sense. And you're not out to get me. So why not explain it when you can?
I'm shaking my head because I remember cars.
Oh, it was huge.
One of the top
it's always a
issues for
problem.
law enforcement officers.
Huge.
Everybody wants a new car.
Yes.
Pat, what did you do? Did you have a magic salve?
I didn't have anything magic, but I'll say something. I'll say it in the best way I can. I was very lucky to be in a community. The Unity Tour started in '97, so we were in a community that very small community. Mayor and council were very positive towards law enforcement, EMS, and so on and so forth. But when it came to money, they had to do their jobs too. What I wanted to add to what Erik is saying is that as a chief, you got to realize your place. You have a union. In New Jersey, it's a big union area. It's a PBA, Policemen's Benevolent Association. That will be all the officers under the rank of sergeant. And it makes up around a predominantly amount of numbers of your agency. So you want to make sure that you as a chief, when you're doing your contract, that you're not doing your contract before them. That when you're getting a car, that you make sure that they have their cars first. That when you're going out to make it easy and you leave, when they're standing out in patrol doing 14 hours on a corner, that you didn't stop by and ask them if you want some water or relief. Just because you're the chief doesn't make you not responsible to remember when you were a sergeant. Remember we talked about the hardest spot was to be a sergeant? Remember that. The thing is remembrance and honor. Remember that you as a chief doesn't give you the right to make sure you tell them you're the chief and you don't have to do the things they do and you can go home when you need to go home and deal with things from a phone. It's the believability factor. And if the mayor and the council and the community sees that, then things will fall into play. You may not get every single thing, but I talk about negotiation. Negotiation is always what I like to go into. You're going to tell me no as a mayor and council on my salary and salary for my officers or for cars as we talk about or budget. They have a responsibility to the community for tax dollars, but I have a responsibility to serve that community. I have to be able to share what that is and also have the respect for my men and women that serve with me to prove that out. So my numbers on what we do out in the community for tickets should be where they are relative. You shouldn't be overburdening your community trying to say that, all you're going to do is show people that you can give them a ticket for a discipline. You have to show that you have community policing. You have to have this diverse dynamic. You have to be in the schools. You have to be on the roads. You have to be able to find out what the traffic situations are. What is going on in my community? What is the quality of life needs that they want? And to be able to be bigger and better than that and have those divisions that you have within your agency and the power as a chief to make those decisions. If you make those decisions that make your town council look good and your officers always getting a praise and a clap rather than someone saying, why not? Why aren't they doing it? It allows you to have the understanding during those negotiation periods, during budget time, during contract time, during the cars, you hope, in January and February when you get the new ones, that you're getting something for all rather than some. You have to take a look at it from a more global perspective. You have to say, how can we meet the standard that they would say they can't say no to? That's where I tried to bring it to. So the short answer is, Bill, I tried to make our town council realize we were worthy for it, that we were responsible for it, that we weren't overdoing it, and that the public would come out for us if somebody was to say, you're going to give your cops what? And they're doing what? So we made all our officers EMTs because we had our prominent calls for service, a couple assisted livings, 2 colleges, all different types of quality of life issues. Our number one was medical. So what did I do? Or what did we do, the agency, and previously before me? Made our officers EMTs. We had, medical supplies, the ability to shock somebody, the ability to take care of people when they realize we're going to get there in 2 minutes. The ambulance, a volunteer, may take 20. I vote for the 2 minutes on a shock and oxygen versus waiting 20 minutes. Not that they aren't wonderful people saving lives, but time. So people say, wow, what's our response time? And then we educate our public. 1 minute, 48 seconds on the average to get to your house. When you're choking, that matters. So we communicate those messaging. So it's not so much believability. It's the understanding your role. Everybody thinks you put the badge and the gun on just to lock up a bad guy. They don't realize you're going to somebody's house unless they need you. They forget all about that. Quality of life issues are about 72% of all calls for law enforcement. 75, I think, at the point, when I was there. But you may do, 50,000 jobs a year, but in the 50,000 jobs, they're not all homicides. I mean, let's be honest. We're not, SUV or 48 hours solving crimes in 30 minutes. It takes years. It takes months. It takes somebody willing to take that effort. So it's the dynamic, Bill. It's who you are as a person, too. And you hope that you're able to shape your officers up. And can you do all that? Sometimes it's very difficult when you have things around us like we have in the world today. People are judging us from afar, from a 30,000-foot level sometimes, saying, hey, they're them. Who's them? We're trying to go, like I heard something early on, somebody talk about today saying, somebody said, and it was on the news and it went viral many years ago during a school shooting, I believe it was, saying, I'll take a bullet for you. You remember that statement? How many people do you know in the world that say that, Bill?
Well, cops, certainly, but
right.
Outside of that, not many.
So when I say to my mayor, is there a bank robbery today? He says, no. I says, well, we stopped that. Or is there an issue today? No. Well, my officers don't take it out of consideration that may have happened if we allow that stuff to be able to be here. You got to realize, be proud of who you are, show them who you are, and be continually consistent. Mm-hmm. Don't be one day I'm up here, I'm rah-rah, the next day, where is he? Where is she? No. So when you said about time frame, I'll be honest with you. I put 24 hours a day in if I had to. And I did some days.
I know you did.
And sometimes to our own health. So I'm going to say again, remember your health and health. Your mind, your heart, and your body is not just a tool for you to protect everybody else. Protect yourself too so you can protect everyone else. Get your head right. Get your heart right. Get your mind right. And focus on not what the politicians say, not what the people that are on the left or anybody else that's trying to be negative. Know what you say. Don't change your way of leadership because of blogs or other things. I never did it. Someone said you did something bad. So what? I'm going to focus on what we need to move forward. And if it's not right, it's something I believe in and I hope it's right. And maybe somebody will see the reason why I'm doing it. It's for the betterment of our community. You can't always, and I'm not saying kowtow or to roll over, and that's not a good way to say it, but you got to stand for your convictions too. Don't immediately say, you're right, I'm sorry. Why are you sorry? Did you do something wrong for helping people? Just tell them, explain it to them. They may not understand your point of view. Be vocal, be public, and be proper, and tell them what you need. I had many days to think about this for 7 years about this interview when you're asking me questions. I've been retired for 7 years now, and I said to myself and I said to my wife.
Wait. You waited 7 years to come let me interview you? I've been here for a year and a half, Pat. What's good?
But 7 years in your life to think about your career after you've gone.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, Bill, I never left. I may have left the rank for somebody else to hold and honor in that agency. But I'm still a chief. I'm still Pat Montuore, who went through the police academy to be an officer. I'm still a dad. I'm still a husband. I'm still one who makes mistakes. I'm still a person who bleeds when you cut me. But I'm also somebody who cares about you before me to this very day. So if I see something in the street that could hurt somebody with a car, I'll pull over even though somebody will say you shouldn't do it. Or I'll go out and I'll back somebody up even though my life is at risk. And the bottom line is that I'll do it every day. And if I have to go with my boots on, that's the way I want to go. I want to go doing something that is positive, not only for myself, but for somebody else.
I wish our listening audience could just see you both, see the body language. I hope that they can hear the passion in both of your voices. And it really is my experience that every single person I've met in law enforcement, and particularly leaders like both of you who serve as exemplars across our profession, every single leader and police officer I've ever met feels this sense of pride, duty, honor that you're describing here so deeply in their bones. This sentiment runs so common across our profession, and I think it certainly is not broadcast on that level across mainstream media. It's certainly not on social media. You're not going to see it on Twitter. But within our profession, what you're expressing here today is so common. So thank you for sharing your broad leadership thoughts. And you mentioned in that answer, you dropped Police Unity Tour, and that should serve as a good segue. So as a brief recap for those listening who aren't otherwise aware, in the early 60s, then President JFK, John F. Kennedy, declares May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week that follows as Police Week. And I think probably into the mid to late 70s, our profession, begin to realize that we have fallen short to some degree, that we collectively have not yet congregated, pulled together, done something to honor the men and women who are dying in the line of duty, who are sacrificing everything in service of their communities. Congressman Biaggi and Senator Pell, in the late 70s, they try to get some legislation passed, but it stalls. But they are ultimately successful in the early 80s, 1984, to pass what was then called and now referenced as the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, which allows for the collection of monies to begin thinking about, designing, and ultimately building what we now know as the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, which sits right outside of the museum where we are now. That is completed in 1991. It really is such a stunning piece of artwork, and it really does serve to honor the men and women who have given everything in service of us. But just 6 short years later, a slightly younger Pat Montuore decides that he wants to support the memorial in some way, because the memorial is funded entirely by private dollars. There's not a single dollar of government money which is used to maintain, build, otherwise keep pristine this very sacred space for us. So, Pat, you're in New Jersey. You wake up one morning and you say,
I actually just had a picture in my mind, and I got to say this before I begin. And you know how things work when you say to yourself about, honor and commitment. And I had no idea that the person in Washington, D.C., this memorial was being created was Craig Floyd at the time. And Craig Floyd's mother-in-law happened to live in my community where I went to church every Sunday, and I would see her sit in the front seat. And then very shortly after, this all came into law and started, Craig Floyd visited our community at the Little Red Schoolhouse, which is a historical site where it's a school house that's big enough for 4 people. They said kids went there. I don't know if they ever did, but some people might have. But in any event, at the Little Red Schoolhouse, which is an icon in the center of our town, and it's a schoolhouse where Craig came and so eloquently spoke about the sacrifices of law enforcement. And I said to myself, listening to my uncle, seeing what's going on out there, it just hit me in my heart some way, saying that, people don't know who we are. And I always wondered, Pill, you go to these funerals for our brothers and sisters and you say, oh my God, what happens after the bagpipes stop playing? What happens to that family? I mean, and you're saying to yourself, oh my God, how can they bear it? But you realize that you yourself have to be a part of that equation, that it's you yourself and others that should be doing something about it and not asking. And it's so hard because you feel so awkward. You say to yourself, how do I, go into the opportunity of being able to tell somebody I'm sorry and actually they believe me? Well, I think the best way is education. And then when we were selling shirts early on in 91, when this was a grass lot and, you see Thin Blue Line shirts and you're raising dollars and the Valor pins that everybody sees out there that has the Memorial Valor pin with the bar going across it and you wear it on your badge holder very proudly. I was a part of that. That was one of the first original little pins that we started to sell early on to raise money because this is our place. Remember that, the citizens that are listening to this is your place. You're the people who made it possible for this memorial to be erected by your donations. Again, Bill said it earlier, our executive director said, we're not federally funded. So with that being said, that's a big word. Law enforcement's always used to hearing another unfederally funded program. How do we backfill it? How do we create? How do we do something? Well, guess what? We did. We didn't only ride our bikes here. People skated, people ran, people did fundraisers. There was golf outings. There was so many things that people did immediately to be a part of making sure that our loved ones and our officers that protected us were respected by being in a place that their stories could be told. So the answer to that is that's what I was thinking early on, like, what can you do? And, I guess sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. I just couldn't help myself. I wanted to be involved. I wanted people to see that I cared. I wanted people to see that we care as law enforcement. I remember sitting in a locker room, roll call, people are saying, nobody cares. And I would leave the room and say, nobody cares. But then I said to myself, but they do. They just need to hear you. You know, they just need to hear a little bit that you're human, that you're not running around with that badge. And you know, we do look intimidating, right? But we have to. We're out there for a purpose, to train and for law. But, you know, it doesn't take away. We are human, and we should be a part of these causes. So I guess my point is that there's no cause too big for you to be involved in. And there's no cause more appropriate in law enforcement than remembering the stories of our fallen. And whether you yourself, your agency, your town, or anyone has experienced that, and God bless, I hope you never do. But if you do, you feel, sometimes lost. You feel hurt. You feel that you were attacked. But the way I look at it is that I don't feel that way any longer. I feel honored. Remember that officer. And they did exactly what they knew they wanted to do, and that was to protect all of you. So next time you see them riding down the road, as I do, say a prayer for them. Or if you're not a holy person, wish them well, because they have a family too. They have a mom. They have a dad. That's how they got here. And they are human. So don't forget who they are. And certainly don't forget who the National Law Enforcement Memorial is, because that's our place. That's our home. When we come here, Bill, you say welcome home. And everybody here knows exactly what that means. They may live in Texas, but this is our home. So the answer early in 91 is I just wanted to be involved, Bill. I wanted all law enforcement to matter. And it was an ugly time for law enforcement at the time. There was riots in California. There was things of abuse. There was all different types of race things going on around us. And I don't want law enforcement to be remembered for things like that. What about working 12 straight days during Sandy? What about being on lockdown, making sure that you're taking care of a community when there's a problem or a homicide or a horrible, horrible incident to a child or somebody else? And those are the things I think about when I say to myself, can I be involved one more year making sure that the memorial or the police unity tour or a fundraiser is going to go? I say to myself, as long as I got breath in my lungs and I got a heart that's beating, I'm good to go, Bill.
Well, what was the first nugget? What was the first thought where you said, I'm going to get on a bike and ride from New Jersey to Washington, D.C.? I have to assume someone in your peer circle said, Pat, you're crazy. You're going to go on a bicycle and ride from New Jersey to D.C.?
Bill, I got made fun of. In cop world, it's make fun of your own, right? So,
yes.
So the answer to that was it was a big thing during the times between 91 and 96 was a huge influx, especially during Clinton's administration when he was president, about cops ahead, cops fast. These were grants in relationship with community policing. The government themselves were looking at what was needed during times of riots and things of that nature. There needed to be more of a community involvement, community component. And with that being said, there was a lot of federal grant monies towards that. And I had the lucky opportunity to be able to be a part of one of those things. And that money. And I was sent to, community policing school, DARE school, bicycle school. And during the time I was going through the bicycle school, there was a lot of things going on around us again. A lot of things where people were upset with law enforcement. I'm saying every time we think that people like us, now we're in trouble again, right? So at that point in time, I was in the class and I was doing a report for the end of the class. How do you bring awareness to your profession? I went back to my room that night. I was in Philadelphia. It was a bike class to learn how to be a bike officer. And I came back and I said, I think we should honor our fallen. Anybody could take money and bring it to Washington, D.C. And that's not putting them down, Bill. I'm not doing that. But I said it in the competitive law enforcement, mechanical way of saying to get people riled up to be a part of this. I said, anybody can do that, but you as law enforcement should be on this bicycle, in a support vehicle, in an ambulance, something to make sure a sea of blue goes without any protest, without any hoopla, very silently, very honorably, and very appropriately, and to carry a bracelet of those who can't make that ride, and $1 as a toll. Because as a kid, I always wondered when I went to funerals, what was the dollars and these things for? And the old timers used to say, hey, they got to pay a toll when they go to heaven. I didn't know if that was true. I hope I have $1 and somebody throws it in my casket so I could pay my toll. But in a tradition, on a serious note, in a tradition way, is that $1 is a representation that they would donate to. They've already donated their lives. And we wanted to make sure that the bracelet goes back to the family to let them know that after the bagpipes, who's watching? We're watching. Not just the Police Unity Tour. Please don't be mistaken by that. There's many organizations out there that care. But we do it in a way that is absolutely pure and appropriate. We ride the bracelet with the bracelet on our wrist, hand one to the family. We bring $1 for them to recognize we paid their toll, and that we know that if they had, roles were reversed, they would do it if it was us. And that's the way cops are.
How many riders did you have that first ride?
We had 18 riders that first year, and everybody told me to lose their number at the end of it.
Was Harry one of the riders?
Yes, Harry Phillips, our executive director. It was one of our riders. Yes, he was.
So they get to the end and they say, I'm never doing this again.
He specifically, I have to say it, and if I have to spell his name, I will, but Harry Phillips, I'll say it again, Harry Phillips, most amazing person in my life, chased me around when I was a kid. I finally convinced and told him, I guess, the right lie to come on this tour. And I did the route, and everybody laughed at me. I picked every hill that you could possibly go up to get to Washington, D.C. So they immediately fired me from the route committee and told me never to go back to AAA and just use a map. So now we created a committee. And what is amazing about law enforcement is it takes many people, as they say, a village, right, to raise a family. Well, it also takes a village in law enforcement sometimes to get it right. And that day when we got home and everybody said, lose my number, they were really telling me they wanted to be involved, that it was that good and that it was that honorable and that it was that miraculous that we were able to do things that most people laughed at. But what happened is nobody's laughing anymore. I'm sitting here right now welling up, and my emotions are true and pure to what I'm experiencing or feeling right now, because my emotion from 1997, from 18 to at some points in time, 2,600 law enforcement officers, and many countries as far as Israel, Australia, Germany, Italy, India. We've crossed lines when it comes to that. So all I'm asking for the people out there that are listening is that this is not so much about asking for a donation, but ask yourself, if you had to care about something and you had to donate to something, wouldn't it be great to donate to something that where one person will give their life for you and they won't ask you for nothing? And then think about this. Their family sacrificed their loved one for you. Now for the rest of their life, they got to hope that someone will be there for them. And that's where you see national cops. That's where you see the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial and Museum. And that's where you certainly see us, the Police Unity Tour. And I will tell you, there's many organizations out there that feel the same way, and I'd be sitting here for half an hour telling you that. But humbly, ask yourself those questions who are listening. Should I donate? I don't know. Ask yourself that. Had you ever needed a law enforcement officer's assistance? Don't judge us based on a ticket. That's so you don't hurt yourself out there. That's all they're for. We're not proud giving out tickets. In fact, sometimes it's a nuisance. But with being respectful right now, don't forget who cares about you. And please, for those officers who are out there that were on the Unity Tour this year, God bless you. I love you, as I said when you came here, and I will do this to the last breath that I have in my heart and in my soul. So when I'm gone, make sure it keeps going. That's all I ask.
I am exceedingly confident it will. You talked about, of course, now it's been more than 25 years you've been doing this. You started with 18, and you're easily over 2,000 now. Eric, give us a sense of the logistics. How do you get 2,000 riders, support vehicles,
Wow.
support staff, medical folks, motors? How do you traverse that distance? How do you work out the logistics of that?
It's actually a crazy, amazing feat, actually, working with Chris Jackson in the office and doing logistics with him. He and I have been doing that for these last 2 years. There are some things that just you can't plan, but you have to still plan A, B, C, D, and E. It never works how we want it to work, but it always is smooth. And that's our goal, is smooth, efficient, and safe. Some of the things... we're going to actually starting in 2 weeks, probably, we're going to be getting home and we're starting on next year already. We're starting on hotel contracts, road permits shortly after that. New registration process this year, so we're building a whole new platform. It's a very, very tedious job that a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't realize it when I was riding. I rode for 7 of the years that I've been involved, and I loved riding. But when I started doing support, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is crazy. But it was actually my first year when we actually were riding and we got shut down because of weather. It was lightning and thundering, and it was crazy. And now, this was my first year. I said, no, I'm riding. I don't care what Maryland says or Delaware, whoever it was. I'm riding. Or Pat, for that matter. But he actually said it. He stood up on the lead vehicle on a pickup truck, and he was talking to us, and he explained it. And this is exactly what we do. He said, listen, and probably half the people were upset, half the people understood, and but he said, listen, those of you who are upset about this and want to make sure you ride for those who die, hey, we're here. We're still doing it. We're still getting there, and we're going to get there safely, which was the number one. But he said, listen, you have to realize that we're not just, riding and all of a sudden it rains and thunders and lightning and we can just stop. It's like moving a small city 4 days in a row, 4 times a day. Right? We're taking, for our chapter this year, we were almost 700 people. So we're taking literally a small city of bikes and buses and trucks and luggage and people and everything else imaginable, and moving it 4 days in a row, 4 times a day. You can't just stop in the middle. So we have to have contingency upon contingency upon contingency. It's just the way we work in the office has become pretty smooth, pretty efficient, and that's and all of it is because of we want it to be safe. And if it stops us from going because of thunder and lightning, I guess we could put up with it, I guess. But this year was great. This year we had awesome weather. It was beautiful out there, and it was very smooth, and everybody was just great. This year I thought it was one of our best ones.
I agree.
In a long time.
Well, it really is staggering when I see the riders arriving here at the memorial. It's staggering to see this massive police officers riding in all on bikes, just rider after rider after rider circling our very sacred memorial, and then envisioning that same chain of people linked together over such a long space, multiple days, hundreds and hundreds of miles. It really is staggering what you gentlemen are able to put together. Pat, you talked a little bit about the donation, and we haven't specifically articulated it yet, but you and the Riders for Police Unity Tour, you ride for those who died.
Yes.
You ride for those who died, and each rider for Police Unity Tour wears a bracelet commemorating at least one person, a man or woman who's died and whose name is on the memorial walls. And all of the money you raise is then subsequently used to help fund our very sacred space. Every single year you bring us millions of dollars. Over the last 25 years, you have brought us more than $30 million.
Yes.
And I do not think it's unfair to say out loud, I'm not sure the memorial would be here without the support of the Police Unity Tour.
That is a very humbling statement to say. So I'm trying not to have emotion right now, because it's something that when you ask me, what is your when you say greatest achievements, I don't want to necessarily say greatest achievements. I would like to say something that is the most rewarding in your life, that is unspoiled by politicians, unspoiled by corruption, unspoiled by anything. It's our place. But in a sense, I was so proud of being able to say that we were a part of this and still continue to be a part of this. And, that's the driving force. I realize the government should be a part of this now. I say it's our place because we have the ability to make sure that nobody takes away our traditions or certain things. But, that's just always being protective as a law enforcement. I think if you're listening out there, government, make sure you do your part, because there's a lot of people out here, and I'll just say it. The bottom line is I'll shake the tears right now and do the best I can and say what I really mean. The government has a responsibility for those who serve them as well, too. We don't always come out of here, healthy. We come out of here sometimes broken. And there's many things that happen to law enforcement: death, suicide, hurting your family, alcoholism, drugs, and things that happen to people who suffer from continuous stress and duress, rigors of the job, PTSD. I hope that people that actually employ us realize that we suffer from those things, and that it's their duty to make sure that our minds are right. It's their duty to make sure that they represent a place for us that we call home and make it fulfilled financially. Bill, that's my goal. Will it take away what we do as a Unity Tour, Eric? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I'll work harder. If the government wants to work for us, I challenge them right now. I challenge them right now to do what we do each and every day for the people who serve them. For all the bosses that are out there are taking a look, or mayors and councils, congressmen that come to our memorial, or they talk about it during tough times. Don't talk anymore, please. Do like we do. Show up on May 12th and give $2 million and say, I care. Take a look at a survivor and say, we represent you. Take a look at those who serve and say, we'll help protect you after your career is done by giving you the treatment, the medical treatment. Because, some communities take away our medical after we're gone. And I'm not afraid to say I suffer from PTSD, and that a lot of people do. But we got to protect our minds. And for those of you who are out there that suffer, don't be embarrassed. I just said it on a podcast. Be whole to yourself, and then you'll be whole to the rest of everyone else around you.
Well, I hope, and certainly I feel, that the work that you have done and are doing through Police Unity Tour, not singularly, but certainly the leader of a strong team, has to be healing. I mean, I have seen you ride in many times before. You just rode in 2 days ago. There is something in the air there when you ride in, when those riders ride in. Not just their emotion, but the emotion of the people who are here at the memorial waiting for your arrival. Thousands and thousands of people. Survivors, co-workers, peers, family, friends, citizens of this great country, all here to celebrate and recognize the tribute that you and the many men and women who ride in Police Unity Tour have done and are doing, to commemorate, to celebrate, to never forget the men and women whose names are on these walls. And I hope, my greatest hope is that as you recall each of those instances in your life, most recently just 2 days ago, that to some degree helps when you are dealing with the random and occasional, I have some remembrance, it's causing me pain. There are very, very few people in this world that have done and are doing what you have done, Pat Montuore. So I stand in awe, honestly, genuinely, of what you have done and what you have accomplished. And it's my incredible, incredible honor to follow in your footsteps and work here at the memorial, where I am incredibly proud and humbled to be even a small part of this very sacred organization. I hope that this conversation today has sparked an interest in someone in our profession who otherwise either wasn't aware of Police Unity Tour or had not yet connected with the raw emotion that both of you are expressing today. So let's say they have an interest. What would they do? How would they come support you? How would they ride on their own?
So we have on our website, policeunitytour.com. They can go on there, and there's contact us. Then there's membership inquiry contacts, and that goes directly to me. So I'll be the one answering all the questions, and we direct them to our chapters. We have other chapters out there in the country. We have Vegas, we have Northern California, Southern California, Virginia, Georgia, Florida. So we'll try to work with them to figure out where they're located so that we can get them directed to the right chapter. They can ride, and we talked about it a little bit, but we got to remember also our support teams. It's not just the riders that are riding for those who died. It's those motors who we can't get there without those motors. I mean, we basically don't stop pedaling because those motors are working. If we're on a 100-mile day, they're working a good 6 hours, 7 hours, however long we're riding. They're working that whole entire time. So we have motors, brake teams, support hotel team, logistics, luggage teams. I'm going to forget one and somebody's going to be upset with me, but all those support, we can't get there. We can't move that small city without them. So you can, if you're not willing to ride or you don't want to ride or you can't ride, we have a place for everyone. On all those different teams, we can get you somewhere, and you'll still be supporting the National Law Enforcement Officer Memorial, still be part of the Unity Tour, and still be a part of that amazing fraternity of women and men that just, do the right thing for those officers. And so just put out that contact on that website. We'll get in touch with you, and we'll be able to connect you with the right people.
All right. Is there anything you would want to add? Any question I haven't asked you that you would love to elaborate on?
No, Bill. I think you've asked all the questions that, that are for our communities and citizens to understand who we are and, why we do these things. But, I would want people to realize we're also evolving as an organization. We're trying to meet those younger officers, the unborn officers, as I would say, that aren't even in yet. How do we meet them? How are we able to bridge the gap about what and where and how they are in today's society versus us saying, well, that's a new generation. We need to be able to touch those communities. We're doing a TV show, as you've been on. I had the opportunity of interviewing you, Bill, and Troy, which was amazing, and it's called On Your Honor Straight Talk. It's on RVN television. We have, social media. We have Facebook. You have Twitter. We're going to be pushing out stuff with Instagram in the future. So we're moving towards a future where sometimes before we would shy away from the media because you think the media sometimes pokes at us, or if they have everything, they can poke at you and it slows you down. Well, guess what? If they poke at us, so what? To me, I don't care. Call me what you want, as long as you don't call me late to making sure I'm here every year in May for those who've died in the line of duty. For those who are talking out there, obviously you aren't here. And for the politicians and the federal people that are out there, the county and state, who are our bosses, make sure you take care of the people that serve you and your communities because they're really important people and they need your support. In order to do a better job for you, the leaders, you need to support them. And not only support them, I hope that the government, our president and Congress and the Senate and Assembly see the value of not defunding a police agency or police officers, but funding them in the appropriate way. Educate us, help us, honor us, respect us, and remember us is what I ask. So not a question, Bill, just a statement. One, because I feel obligated to say it after 37 years of being around law enforcement. And then also seeing many of our friends die. And I'm just going to be blunt. There are too many people on that wall that I'm starting to get emotional again, that shouldn't be there, but are, because they chose to do things for all of us. I made it out. Is it guilt? I don't know. But I will tell you, I had the opportunity and God blessed me. But in some place, some way, shape, or form, I will see them all again. And for those of you who are out there serving, God bless you. For you retirees, take care of those who are currently serving. Don't be a stranger and run away. Give them your talent, give them your respect, and help them be better in their profession and show them who we really are.
Well, I know you know this, Pat. On the four corners of our sacred memorial are some quotes. Yeah. On the southeast is, "In valor there's hope." In the northeast, "The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the bold are righteous as a lion." In the northwest is a quote from a survivor. It says, "It's not how these officers died that made them heroes, it's how they lived."
Yeah.
The quote that has always resonated most deeply with me is in the southwest corner from Bush, the inauguration in 1991. It says, "Carved on these walls is the story of America, of a continuing quest to preserve both democracy and decency.
Yes.
And to protect a national treasure that we call the American dream."
Yes.
And I want you to know that I recognize you two sitting right here are the American story, protectors of that very same democracy and protectors of our American dream. And I really am humbled to be here in the same room with you, to have worked in the same profession as you, and to be working here at the memorial, which you continue to contribute to. So on behalf of the Memorial Fund, on behalf of everyone in our profession, on behalf of everyone in this country who should recognize the cost to protecting that democracy, which is tragically measured every single year in the lives of men and women in uniform. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this edition of Icons, featuring Pat Montuore and Erik Heller, with guest host Bill Alexander. We hope you found this conversation enlightening and will join us again for another edition of Icons, where we introduce listeners to incredible people working within law enforcement who have had a profound impact on the community. These one-on-one interviews provide insight into their lives and careers so we can better understand their challenges and recognize their bravery, commitment, and sacrifice. The Icon series is not just about contemporary figures in the law enforcement community, but about all those who have served their communities and the world, from now and in the past. Be sure to tune back in with us for future Icons episodes, exclusively on Tuesdays every month, to learn about key figures in American law enforcement history. Please subscribe to Precinct 444 on your favorite podcasting platform to stay connected and to receive our latest content as soon as it drops. We would love to hear from you. Send in your questions, comments, and feedback to precinct444@nleomf.org. You can help us make our content even better. The National Law Enforcement Museum is located at 444 East Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., and is dedicated to telling the story of American law enforcement. We expand and enrich the relationship between law enforcement and the community through educational journeys, immersive exhibitions, and insightful programs. Find us online at lawenforcementmuseum.org and stay tuned for more podcast content from Precinct 444. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you at the precinct.